Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. India is a quasi-federal republic, more federal, rather more unitary than federation if you look at the constitution. And yet, when the government of India takes some steps, there's a lot of sound and fury, lot of noise, unwarranted of course, about the actions of the government, saying that it is hitting at the federal structure. The government extends the jurisdiction of border security forces without in any way impinging on the powers of the state. And the states start crying that way. And now, 8 provinces, the provinces in India are called states. So, these 8 provinces, West Bengal, controlled by Mamata Banerjee, Maharashtra, Shiv Sena Congress, Kerala, Congress and Communists, Punjab, Congress, Rajasthan, Congress, Jharkhand, Congress, rather UDF, Chhattisgarh and Mizoram. They have withdrawn the permission to CBI, consent. And this was stated by CBI itself in an affidavit filed with the Supreme Court. Supreme Court had pulled up CBI. Why the delay in the investigations? And the response was very clear. Our hands are tied behind our back. The provincial governments, the state governments do not permit us to operate. So how can we do it? What the government says, the state government says, that for every case to be investigated, CBI should submit an application and case to case permission would be given. Now this is time consuming, detrimental to timely and prompt investigations. And the Supreme Court hasn't liked it. And it cannot be liked by any sensible authority. And over the last few years we have seen that the antipathy to BJP is prompting anti-BJP controlled states to act in a most unbecoming, unconstitutional manner. And there has been ordinarily no action. If Congress had been controlling the center and BJP was controlling the provinces, by this time these governments would have been dismissed because they are promoting lawlessness. They are promoting divisive forces. They are in fact promoting all the criminals, hiding them, protecting them. See, in Maharashtra, one of the ministers is in a feud with central agency, coming up every day with canards, which have yet to be proved. But anyway, as a minister, he should not have done it. Now these BJP ministers and the governments are acting in a manner to show that they are much more powerful, that they can veto the investigation. And as a matter of fact, people who have been committing crime are happy. Now, as I was saying, if the same thing had happened, and it happened, when Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister and Babri Masjid was destroyed, all the BJP governments were dismissed. Nothing had happened in those states, nothing, but only the fact that since BJP was involved in demolishing Babri Masjid, all the governments, UP, Himachal Pradesh, practically all were dismissed overnight. But here I am seeing that Prime Minister Modi is keeping quiet. Is it the calm before the storm? Is he planning something? I don't know. But one thing is sure, that this action of the provincial government is unconstitutional, goes against the concept of federation. Now, it's a fault of the government as well. As a matter of fact, the original CBI Act is defective. The Act under which CBI was constituted clearly states that CBI cannot exercise its powers and jurisdictions in a state without the consent of the state government. Now, the consent of the government state is required also to investigate offences listed under Section 3 of the Act specified by the centre. And now look at the facts. CBI sent 150 requests to the government of Maharashtra, Punjab, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Kerala and Mizoram in 3 years, from 2018 to June 21 this year. In these 3 years, 150 requests were sent for grant of specific investigations in these states. And these requests were made for investigating trap cases, disproportionate asset cases, cases relating to the allegation of cheating, forgery, misappropriation, loss of foreign exchange and bank fraud. The permission was granted in less than 18% cases which were related mainly to the case of trap the central government public servants. Now, what does the withdrawal of the general consent mean? It means that the CBI will not be able to register any fresh case involving officials of the central government or a private person in the state without the consent of the state government. CBI loses all powers of a police officer if they enter the state unless the state government has allowed them to do so. Calcutta High Court recently gave an order, and that was a justified order, that in the case of illegal coal mining and cattle smuggling being investigated by CBI, the central agency cannot be stopped from probing an employee of the central government in another state. And then the state government goes and challenges in the Supreme Court. There was a case, Vinay Mishra versus CBI, and Calcutta High Court ruled very clearly that the corruption cases have to be treated equally across the country, and the central government working in, say, UP cannot be distinguished, separated from central government officer working in Rajasthan or Maharashtra or West Bengal, where BJP is not ruling. The job is the same, action is the same. If CBI can control that, this should control. So this action of the High Court was very proper, but then there has been a Supreme Court. Then the withdrawal of the consent would apply in cases where only the state government is involved. That means if they are corrupt and the chief minister wants to protect them, the central agency cannot do anything. So where does the CBI stand? Now let's not forget, as I was saying, the original fault was that CBI was created under Delhi Special Police Act Establishment. Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, DPS. This should not have been, and it should have been independent act, not Delhi Police Act. And it should have been stated that it has got India-wide jurisdiction. Now, CBI is akin to FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation of USA, which can investigate any case anywhere within USA. So CBI is just like that. It is actually complementary to the police department. Local police are there, and in North America we see in Canada, the police can be of a municipality, the police can be of a university, the police can be of a province, and then there are federal police. Now, RCMP, for example, here in Canada, or FBI in USA, they cannot be prohibited by a province to stop jurisdiction. So original fault was there, but the government can always amend that. It's not a constitution, it's a simple order, a simple law amendment which can be passed by the parliament, and pending that, government can bring in an ordinance which is effective for 6 months, and in that 6 months the parliament can meet and approve that, and it becomes a law. It is only saying that the jurisdiction of CBI shall be over all the geographical area of India. That's it. Now, one thing they fail to understand, that by withdrawing the consent, they are only delaying the process. One, the order of the Calcutta High Court enables CBI to do anything. Even otherwise, the withdrawal of the consent does not make CBI defunct in that state. It retained the power to investigate those cases which had been registered already. And then suppose the case is registered elsewhere in the country. And these states where there can be peripheral accused, investigation can be done. There is an ambiguity whether the CBI can carry out search in connection with old cases without the consent of the state. The only option is for the agency to get a warrant from the local court. And that's the problem. Because if the local courts are likely to favor the state government, because those magistrates and judges are at the mercy of the provincial government. So it will delay the matter. However, I fail to understand why CBI is not using Section 166 of Criminal Procedure Code. Under Section 166 of CRPC, allows a police officer of any jurisdiction to ask an officer of another jurisdiction to carry out a search on their behalf. The only thing is, they will not be doing the search, their local police will be doing the search, but they will be witnesses to that. And should the first officer feel that the search carried out by the latter may lead to loss of evidence, then they can do the search themselves after giving a notice to later. Okay, gentlemen, we are going to do the search, whether you want it or you don't want it. And thirdly, problem is only about the fresh cases. So one thing sensible has been done, as Calcutta High Court did, and Delhi High Court said that agency can probe anyone in any state, even if the state has withdrawn the general consent, if the case has been registered in another state. So that is something which is sensible. Now the Supreme Court is seized of it. Let's be clear. And as a matter of fact, Supreme Court can issue an order saying that the Act stands amended. This is within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, that they can make a law or change a law. They can say that this portion, this line, that CBI jurisdiction will be constricted, restricted, subject to the consent of state, stands ultra vires. This goes against the Constitution. It's as simple as that, because this is prohibiting the proper prosecution of the criminals. If you remember, in 1998, Janata Dal government of Chief Minister Patel withdrew the consent of CBI in Karnataka. And when in 1999 Congress came in power, they did not change the law. But consent was not renewed for 8 cases. CBI had to close down its office. Now imagine a federal institution to conduct impartial inquiry cannot conduct the cases. And the strange thing is that these very provinces then ask for CBI investigation, where their interest lies. So political accusations aside, is CBI really the instrument of federal government? After 2018 amendment to the Prevention of Corruption Act, Central has come to exercise powers of CBI legally. So if central government is giving a direction, this is as per law. There is nothing wrong with that. And it's mandatory for the CBI to seek the central's permission before registering a case of corruption against the federal government. As a matter of fact, the whole thing is fraught with divisive capabilities. If the states can withdraw the consent today, tomorrow, and earlier, states had objected to another federal paramilitary force, BSF, operating in the border areas up to 50 kilometers. We had discussed that. This would show that the asserted states ultimately are on a way to demand more powers. And some states say that they should be sovereign there. I heard and I read in the newspapers that the 3 states were saying they were sovereign in their own way. They are not. The sovereignty lies with the federal government, with the central government. It's the government of India which is sovereign. It's not the government of Punjab or Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu or any other one which is sovereign. No way. So if CBI doesn't operate, then it fails to be a federal agency. It fails to be a central agency. And it promotes criminal activities on which criminal activities don't have any boundaries. They are not confined to one state. And that's where the role of the CBI, like that of RCMP, like that of FBI, like that of the Scotland Yard, comes in. The federal agencies have a power or a jurisdiction which covers the whole country, irrespective where the crime is committed. And that's the prime need if you want to have an operation which is cross-border, which is across many states. Now, state police of one province cannot go and investigate in another province. They have to seek the permission. But the federal agency can do it. And it doesn't need the permission of the state police, should not. So there are 2 options. Either the federal government changes the law, amends the law, or the Supreme Court, if it's capable, which I hope it is, simply says that that clause is ultra-virus. And once that clause is declared ultra-virus, states would have no right to withdraw the consent, and that would be a saving grace. Would that be done? There's no doubt it can be done, but would that be done? Only time will tell. Unfortunately, in India today, the antipathy to the federal government is having a heyday. And at times even the judgments of the High Court and Supreme Court show the bias, the liberal bias, the anti-majoritarian voice. In fact, all that is unjustified. So let either Modi come up strongly, say, look here, enough is enough. Now we will not tolerate any nonsense, and issue an ordinance. That's one way. The second is, let the Supreme Court come up and say, this clause is ultra-virus, stands annulled, and should be CBI jurisdiction is all over India. No state has a right to restrict it. Let's see what happens. Thank you.